It's Monday, and for once, I have not been in work. In fact, no one has been in work today because it is National Day weekend. National Day happens once a year, and it is to celebrate the start of the UAE, where all of the nations of the UAE, the Emirates, came together and united. And this is the 52nd year. So we did a bit of celebration in school. We had a National Day celebration, and we've had today off, which has been great. But that's not what today's video is about. Today's video is actually linked to Christmas, which many people would say is very anti-UAE because we are in a Muslim country. But I want to talk a little bit about Christmas. I want to talk about Christmas within schools, within the UAE, and if you are an expat out here or if you're thinking about moving to this part of the world, what Christmas could look like if you celebrate it as a holiday. Before we get into it, have a little look at my new Christmas jumper. This is a purchase from Daisy as a gift. We will see how many times I get to wear this, but I'm not sure if Zuko appreciates this or not, but we'll see. As you probably saw by the start of this video, we have decorated the apartment. We have ordered a Christmas tree from Kibson's and have decorated that. We've got some garlands hanging up in the door, the sort of things that are hanging up above, little houses. Daisy made those. We've got some things on the little bar there. We've got some candles. We've got stuff right by the TV. Everything is feeling very festive. Now we put those up a little bit earlier here because obviously over the Christmas period we travel, and we're actually going to Spain this year and Switzerland to see Daisy's family, which will be very nice. But this is a perfect place to start. Being out here in the UAE, you can buy Christmas decorations, you can buy Christmas trees. There are still areas for those of people that want to celebrate Christmas. There are things like that. We've just been to the mall, and a lot of the shops in the malls have Christmas decorations, Christmas hats, trees, baubles, all sorts of things like that. So it is a thing out here. Now, as I said, Daisy and I are actually going away. A lot of families do, a lot of couples do, a lot of people go back home to celebrate Christmas. And we're going to Spain to spend it with Daisy's family this year, which will be lovely. However, a lot of people don't go away for Christmas and they stay here in the UAE. And whilst local people, whilst Muslims, and whilst the country as a whole don't celebrate Christmas, if you were to stay for Christmas, there are plenty of things to do. Lots of people decide to host Christmas dinners and have Christmas in their apartments or their villas or their homes. But a lot of the restaurants, I know that the rugby club is doing it this year, and I know the hotels here in Al Ain are doing it, will put on Christmas-style brunches. And if you go to many of these places, they'll have Christmas trees up for tourists. So Christmas is very much celebrated here, and if you were to stay, you would be able to make the most of the brunches and the dinners and the lunches that are on offer. I would say, however, the biggest difference comes from the school system. Now, being a teacher from the UK, as I'm sure if you're a teacher in the UK, you will attest to this, and indeed in many countries around the world, Christmas is a massive thing in schools, especially in England. The weeks leading up to it, there's nativities, there's decorations that need to be made in classes, charities come into the schools, the children start getting really excited about it. It takes up a big portion of the winter term. That does not happen here. As you can imagine, being in a school with a lot of local children, they don't celebrate it, and actually we need to make sure that we're very mindful of that when we are leading up to that winter period. So rather than calling it a Christmas holiday, for instance, we call it the winter holiday, the winter break. And the way that it's always been spoken to me and the way that I've always been taught about it is it's keep religion out of it. Christmas is a Christian holiday. So by calling it the winter break rather than the Christmas break, we're avoiding upsetting people and saying the wrong thing. Now, although schools don't promote Christmas and don't celebrate it as such, that doesn't mean to say that it's a complete taboo, because it's not. In previous years, parents and families of the children that I've taught have actually been very forthcoming in wishing me the best of luck and a happy Christmas, because they're very mindful that the teachers that are teaching their children may not be Muslim and may well celebrate this holiday. So, So I've definitely had a number of parents come up and wish me a Merry Christmas, which is very kind of them. And so if you are to come out here, you may well experience the same thing. I think ultimately what I've learned is just keep Christmas out of your mouth when you're around the children, because a lot of the children don't look at Christmas in the same way that you might, and we just don't want to upset people. Now, if you are potentially going to come out here and you've got kids and you wonder whether or not the UAE will Christmasize, I'm not sure that's a word, but will be a nice place for your children as we get towards Christmas. There are lots of places that decorate. A lot of the malls will put Christmas trees up, and lots of the social clubs. I know the rugby club here in Al Ain, for instance, and I believe some of the hotels, like the Ratana Hotel, will do things like gingerbread house making. So although you might not see Christmas in as much of an abundance as you would back in your home country, there are still activities to do and things to celebrate this time of year. You just have to look for it. Another thing to come to terms with, and again, this also really depends on where you're from, is the temperature. Now, being from the UK, when it comes towards Christmas time, when it's autumn and the fall, and again going into winter, the weather changes quite dramatically. It gets very cold, it gets wet, it gets windy, the days are shortened, there's nowhere near as much daylight. Whereas here in the UAE, whilst yes, the days do shorten somewhat, it doesn't really get cooler than 25 degrees. During the day, it's still 30. So you could quite easily find yourself in some swimmers by the pool on Christmas Day if you so wanted to. But as I say, a lot of people tend to travel over the Christmas period. You get 2 to 3 weeks off as teachers, so it's a great time to travel. Even if you don't go back home, going to Europe and various other places where it's a bit colder might be a nice consideration. The final thing I'll say before I end this video is it really depends on where you decide to spend this festive period. Here in Al Ain, we're in a much quieter, much more conservative area. There aren't as many expats here, there aren't as many tourists here. Whereas Dubai is very much the opposite. There's a lot going on, there's a lot of people, and there are areas that turn into a winter wonderland. I know that there are some areas where there's a street in Dubai that rains. They've set it up so that it rains. There are systems in place where it rains. And as you get towards Christmas, they change it from rain to snow. So if you have kids, for instance, or even as an adult, you can walk down the street and even though it's 30 degrees, they have made it snow. So there's a lot of things that you can do here and you can still get into the festive, Christmassy spirit, even though we are in this country, it's hot and the country doesn't promote or support Christmas. So that is something to consider as well. But I'm going to end this video here. As you can see, I'm feeling very Christmassy. I know Daisy's getting Christmassy and festive too. We've got a couple of weeks left and then we will be heading off to Switzerland and Spain, and I will be bringing you with me for the festive period. But until then, I'm going to have some food because the dinner's just turned up, and I'll see you next time. Bye.